Good morning, everybody. What is up? What is new? It is Friday, one more shift of your work schedule, and it's the weekend for most. It's the Blitz Morning Show. My name is Toby Brendel, and I will be with you until the very end. Oh, God, dang, is it a nice, beautiful day. What more can you ask for? The sun's out, temperatures are half decent, snow is melting. And we even have a new twist for today's episode for the next probably 8 weeks. And you're trying to think to yourself, what is this guy talking about? Well, for example, on Wednesday, if you tuned in, I did mention something about doing shows about the 90s, video games, movies, trivia, just stuff like that. And yesterday I kind of was thinking about it, humming and hawing, going, do I really need to do that? And you know something? I think my answer was clear and true when my mind basically told me, yes, get your ass into gear and start talking about the 90s, the decade, not the nightclub. Yeah, I kind of took that from another radio station. Thought it was kind of interesting. But, the 90s had, out of every single year from, that I've been alive, so 1 year in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, and even the 2010s, the 90s alone has had some of the biggest jumps in human existence. And that's what I want to do every single Friday for the next 8 weeks, is talk about some of the things that has happened and how much the 90s has had an impact on not only during that decade, but still being affected in the times of today. It is absolutely unbelievable that people who experienced that decade still has strong memories. It just absolutely blows me away. And when it comes to the 90s, it was one of those 10 years that I went from elementary to middle school to high school to graduation to living on my own with a bunch of buds. And eventually moving home, but that's besides the point. So I decided to myself that I am going to go and start talking about this decade and, kind of break down certain things here, certain things there, and just have fun talking about it and share my memories with it to you guys. And heck, if you guys have memories of the 90s, just hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at The Blitz Morning. If you have a story, email it to me at theblitzmorningshow@gmail.com. I will read it. Let's kind of get stuck in that time warp. And, I do have to say I've had a lot of ups and downs in the 90s when it comes to school, life, death, gaining little things. It was actually kind of interesting, kind of cool. But the one part that has a strong effect from times back in the day to now is TV. Back in the 90s, you had the TV. Internet was still new. It didn't have the capability that it has of today with the high data streaming packages. At the start to mid-90s, you were lucky. You were classified a huge-ass rich MFer if you had a computer as well as the internet. And you see, back in the day, with computers, it wasn't small cities, like, for example, in Weyburn, where I live. They didn't have centers where you could basically just hop on, call local. It's basically long distance. So if you wanted to go on the internet to go to a chat room, you would have to go get on long distance, which was incredibly expensive, and call the nearest major city. Like, for example, an hour away was Regina for me. I did not have the internet in my house until the late 90s, when you had high-speed light. It still did its stuff. You could still cruise. Just the upload speeds were a little bit slower, but it was still quick. Well, when it comes to TV, if you had a satellite, you're rich. So you basically had basically cable and some of the other packages that gave you extra ones. Like, your basic cable was from 2 to 13. You had to get a box to go from 2 to 36 or something like that. And that was kind of high class. But when you sit back and relax and try figuring out, does the 90s really have an effect on what we're watching today? And the answer is 100%, totally, uncollisionably, yes. I wrote down a bunch of TV shows that anybody around my age, say 35 and up, will totally understand where these TV shows stand in the TV timeline of all time. It has had that much huge impact of what we're doing today and watching it today. It's just unbelievable. And I know you're thinking to yourself, come on, stop yipping and get to the TV shows. All right. For example, there has been TV shows that has introduced so many characters into the real world of today that it blew apart society. As well as there are TV shows that help introduce TV networks to what they are today, or formerly known as today. For example, Married with Children. One of the most controversial shows, absolutely rancid in parents back in the day's eyes. And it was on late at night, 10 o'clock. So I'd always sneak downstairs, turn it on, watch it. Had a huge laugh. And from there, you had huge names coming out of it. Christine Applegate, Ed O'Neill, Katie Sagal. Huge names that are still a factor of today. Maybe not Applegate, but Ed O'Neill. He's still in our timeline. He's still in TV shows. He's still in movies. He's still a factor on what is going on. But this TV show, despite being put on really late, it helped boost Fox, the TV station, to where it is, or to where it was, aka Fox Entertainment, aka Disney. So if it wasn't for Married with Children, we would have never had Fox blow up like it did. I'm pretty sure a couple years down the road it could have, but with Married with Children, it was one of those things that just blew up for itself, for a bunch of people, as well as a TV station. Well, that's a pretty good start to the show. Well, just hang on. We're going to go to break, come back, and start talking about more influential TV shows from the 1990s. You're listening to the Blitz Morning Show, and I will be back. And we are back from that little break. My name is Toby Brindle. Thank you for tuning into the Blitz Morning Show. And in today's episode, we are talking about 90s TV shows and the impact they have made over time and still how it's going today. I don't remember exactly when this particular TV show came out, but Unsolved Mysteries was a huge hit. It was kind of a reality show, horror themed show. I know, that's kind of weird. But what I mean is basically it looked into criminals, the unexplained, ghosts, moons, aliens, murderers, criminals. And the one part that absolutely has burnt themselves into people's minds is the theme music. Robert Stack, I think that's what his name was, as well as the theme. I didn't have any theme songs put in. Like I said, I just kind of did this on the fly. So I might actually go back and do something for future shows. But Unsolved Mysteries was one of those things that has really impacted kids' lives. Like there was one episode when they were talking about the pyramid on Mars. No, not the pyramid, the face on Mars. How it was a big conspiracy about aliens being there. They're going on and on. And I was afraid to go to the bathroom if the moon was through our kitchen window, because I was afraid I was going to see it. But at the same time, I was super young. It happens to everybody. But the one part that really fascinated me about that show was the ghost stories. They did absolutely awesome. They produced the show great. And you know your show has hit a certain kind of nerve, not on the bad end, but that certain nerve when people today in 2019 still can hear that music, or that music brings back memories from when it was on. Oh, yes. Who here has heard of Will Smith? Huge, massively huge in the 90s. And he also made a huge change in in pulp culture, showing us a person with talent can go in many directions. As well as when it comes to rap music, you don't need swears to get your point across, and you don't need swears to make music. Before the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air came into effect, he teamed up with his buddy, DJ Jazzy Jeff, and the Fresh Prince. They were singing almost like parody songs, like, oh God, Parents Just Don't Understand. The chick's got a bigger mustache than me. Like, they were absolutely hilarious songs. And who knew that little nerdy guy from this rap group would become a huge TV star with Fresh Prince of Bel-Air into a huge movie actor. You could say Will Smith, and everybody, even today, knows exactly who he is. That's the kind of impact that his show made, as well as the decade. He's blown up everywhere, just absolutely everywhere. Wild Wild West, which was a massive bomb. The Men in Black. Independence Day. Then he did Ali. What else? He did a few movies that were absolutely bombs with his son. He even did Deadshot on Suicide Squad. Like, it's just absolutely amazing what this guy has done. And my recommendation, go back and do a little bit of research of Will Smith before Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's quite good. And what about the Fresh Prince still kicks today? Is the Carlton dance. Still going strong. He's still willing to do it. People are still copying it, and people still know about it, especially AKA Epic Games and Fortnite. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. How can you go wrong? Okay. Oh, you want to hear controversy from the 90s? Huge. This TV show had two different stages of his life. Its life, right? Beavis and Butthead. First, when Beavis and Butthead came out, they were kind of pyros. They were playing baseball with frogs, shoving firecrackers in the frogs. Fire, 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 lighting things on fire. Huge negative feedback and huge negative, like, hatred towards this thing. But then Mike Judge turned it around and actually made it more enjoyable and more not, how would you say it, controversy, but yet still had the controversy. If you listen to some of the reviews about Beavis and Butthead, you have some people who like the TV show, then other people loved how they criticized the music videos. And you know, at the time, I wasn't into the music videos. Me personally, it could have been done with, just totally get rid of. But the more I get older, the more appreciation that I have towards Beavis and Butthead criticizing the videos more than I do the plot of the stories. It's absolutely weird. And even the sound clips of Beavis and Butthead, and some of the things that they go like, I am Carl Holyoke. I need TP for my bunghole. Shut up, Beavis. Like, nachos. But you get the point. Like, there's so many things that Beavis and Butthead has done. Then, if you take the spin from Beavis and Butthead, go into the creator of Beavis and Butthead, then you get the next cartoon called King of the Hill. King of the Hill was a very unique TV show. It's hard to explain. I haven't really watched it in a long time, but after Brittany Murphy passed away, they basically said they're done. Like, she was the voice of Luann. Luann was the cousin of Peggy, or the niece of Peggy, took her in, and it kind of silently went downhill when she passed away. But it is what it is. I keep seeing this on my list, and you know, I think I'm going to talk about it when we come back from the break, because this is going to be one of the most biggest, epic TV shows, probably in human history, and is going to be one of the most strongest cartoons ever. Find out what I'm talking about next on the Blitz Morning Show. for staying with us through that little bit of a break. My name is Toby Brindle, and you are continuing to listen to the Blitz Morning Show. Right before the break, I teased about one of the possibly the greatest TV shows ever made, as well as still going. That TV show is The Simpsons. The interesting... stupid tooth. The interesting part about this TV show is that I do believe it started in the 1980s, like 1989. It went from there to the 90s to the 2000s. It's still going today, and it has been renewed for 2 more seasons, which will take us into the 2020s. Wow. The only other real TV show that has done that is WWE Monday Night Raw. But I wouldn't really consider that to be a TV show. It's more of a sports entertainment, kind of like Monday Night Football. I know you have writers, scripters, actors, etc., but when it comes down to it, you can't beat The Simpsons. They've just been around for so long that, including 2-3-year-olds now, like of today, still know about The Simpsons. And so many things that The Simpsons have done or have did still sticks with us as part of our normal everyday life. Like when somebody screws up, you're like, don't! Right? There's no way that you have never used that in your everyday life. Like, excellent. Quickie Mart. Thank you, come again. Silly customers, you cannot earn the Twinkie. It's just simple things like that, like Barney. Ha ha! Nelson. Ralph Wiggum. It just works that way, where these TV shows literally have burnt their culture into us. Springfield. Nuclear Power. Boom. Oakley Dokley. Howdly doodly, Nibberino. Ned Flanders. Like, it just... You cannot beat this particular show. You could say it's from the 90s. You could say it's from 1 year in the 80s. But with the amount of decades this show has had, it just... And the amount of spin-offs that it has created for cross-promotion. Like South Park and even Family Guy, it blows everybody away. Like, I don't even know where to go on that one. And if you say that Simpsons are just a cartoon and does not mean anything, I want you to go do a search for, what is it, 742 Evergreen Terrace. Chris and Joel from Podblock did this. They're chronically reviewing every single episode of The Simpsons from number 1 to right now. I think they're in season 5. So go check it out. There's no doubt about it. You will actually enjoy it. Seinfeld is another huge TV show that I really never paid attention to, so I never got the whole grasps of it. I tried watching it, but it was way over my head. I think that was a TV show that you had to be a little bit older and understand a little bit more of what Jerry Seinfeld did. It was very popular in the time, don't get me wrong. And the one thing that I do have to say is he cut the TV show off perfect time, because, you know, there are some guys that tend to milk their shows as much as they can to make as much as possible, but not Jerry. He kind of tried it different. I totally tip my hat off to him. Did it great. So with Seinfeld, I'm not really going to talk long about this one. It just was not my cup of tea. All right, I probably am going to get a little bit of a hate. The one thing I do have to say is the plots of these stories that Seinfeld did tell were funny, but I just did not like some of the characters. Late 90s was huge. That's basically the spot where TV started turning itself into what it is of today by a few television shows and also one cartoon. The first one that stands out more than the other was South Park. South Park was one of the was really raunchy at the time, and everybody thought it was going to get banned because of it. When you had, was it Kyle looking at his little brother Ike saying, "Hey Ike, kick the baby."
Don't kick the baby.
Kicks the baby. Talking about aliens and probing, anal probing. Then a little bit later, trying to swear, you get bleeps, blops, unedited. It's one of those cartoons that push the boundaries and actually push the boundaries to the point where other TV shows started coming in. Exact same thing with The Simpsons. It has an absolute cultured following or cult following that even of today, people are still watching it 25, 27 seasons later. Like, it is absolutely insane. But when you take a look at where they are to where they where they were to where they are, huge difference. You can't ever really say no to that one. Big, huge difference. But even that, you have the whole Family Guy, South Park, Simpsons, cross hatred towards each other, making fun of each other. It just worked. But if it wasn't for South Park, I'm not even sure if Sopranos would have got the airtime that they did. And, you know, some of you go, "Oh yeah, they would have had the airtime." No worries. Yeah, but if you actually watch the TV show, the time slot that they're in, that was the question that I have. One day I was flipping through the channels, and all of a sudden, boom, big pair of boobs right on my screen. I'm like, wait, what? I look at the time, 7 o'clock. It's like, oh, okay, it must be on Showcase. No, it was on CTV. I was more shocked that the CRTC never shut them down or told them to put that particular show a little bit later, like what they did with Married with Children. But instead, that really pushed the gate open to some of the TV shows of today. Despite being only in the 90s for 1 year, it still opened up a huge door for huge TV networks like AMC, HBO, etc., etc. If it wasn't, like I said, if it wasn't for them, who knows? So everybody is linked. The huge following? No, the huge impact that the 90s TV shows are making are still being affected today or opened up new doors for new TV shows. Family Guy, exact same thing. The 90s, they got so much hatred, so much bash, that they were basically canceled because there was so much backlash. And Simpsons, no, not The Simpsons, that's a little bit later. South Park actually took credit for canceling Family Guy. Like, it's insane. And now Family Guy is so huge, like 20 years later, that same thing with The Simpsons. There's things that Family Guy does that we have in our normal, everyday vocabulary. What the deuce? Yeah, can't really do much voice imitations or stuff like that, but you get the point. Well, yeah, and just think, it was the 1990s that had Family Guy. Well, finally, we're going to hit our probably last commercial break, and we will go from there. So thanks for tuning in, and here we be... damn it. Of today, the 1990s, the TV shows. We've tackled Unsolved Mysteries. We've tackled Married with Children, The Simpsons, Seinfeld, South Park, The Sopranos, Beavis and Butthead, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But with The Sopranos, I've never watched it. I just watched a pair of boobs dancing in front of me on the TV. So I really don't know about the plot, anything like that. But they do say The Sopranos is one of the top 5 best TV shows ever made. From the 90s. Friends. Holy man, I tell you. A TV show that some people didn't think too much of it. Came to be one of the top TV shows of all times. You had a few people pop out of this particular one, like for example Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, David Schwimmer. So who can basically say nay to it? And by the end, they were getting paid like massive, and that's how popular it was. Even if you go and take a look at where it started to when it ended, huge difference. The cult following for this show, I didn't think it was that big. Like, Seinfeld sometimes was one of those one-hit wonders. You try going back and you can't watch it just because it's so dated. Hence, The Sopranos as well. But when it comes to Friends, Netflix paid huge amounts of money to ensure that that particular show stayed on their streaming service. And that's how much they believed into it. One of the reasons why they kept it is because of the uproar that they were receiving when they weren't going to renew it. Who knew it would do that back when it ended like 20 years ago? Me personally, I never, ever, ever would have thought that it would have did something like that. Like, just, it blows me away on how much these things are lasting. Okay, we do have 1, 2, 3 more to talk about, and I know there were so many more shows that could have been on the agenda, could have been on my list, but I picked the ones that stood out for so many reasons, and you will understand the reason why. For the last 3 TV shows, they have made an improvement. They have made an impact, but it's in somewhat other ways. Like, for example, Home Improvement. The people that came out of Home Improvement wasn't a big impact. It was more of the catchphrases and the bits that they were doing, like Binford Tools or even just like Tim Allen's Little Growl. But otherwise, it was one of those things that particular one kind of fell flat on to move into today's standards, just like the other shows that we've talked about. Well, that's absolutely okay, but excuse me. But anybody who's watched it back in the heyday, who knew it was coming on, it stuck with you. You knew it was Tim the Toolman Taylor. His car that he was working on, his sons, it still had some kind of an impact. Not so much today, but it was huge back then. And that's what the show I wanted to talk about a little bit. X-Files, huge. Paranoia, paranormal, ghosts, UFOs, Men in Black. Not the movie. Trying to discover the truth, because the truth is out there. Agent Scully. Agent, whatever their other name is. It was one of those TV shows that you either love it or hate it. And it kind of fell in the exact same spot as Unsolved Mysteries. As soon as the theme hit, you knew exactly what time it was. They did try bringing it back, and people were stoked about it, but it didn't turn out the way it wanted to. There's still tons of places where you can watch it, and I guess they're getting hits and views. But it just was not a strong cultural following into, like, say, the 2010s. It kind of fell flat. And finally, I know, I'm just butchering the last spot, but we're almost at 40 minutes, and I figured that you guys want to kind of, mosey on, do other things. So I'm allowing that. Final one. This one wasn't really the TV show that has an effect on, like, the timestamp and the transition from decade to decade, right? It was the people who made it, who were in it, that has made more of an impact than anything else. Like, for example, Marlon Wayans, Jim Carrey, Damon Wayans, etc., etc. So basically, the Wayans family and Jim Carrey. That TV show in living color. There's more connections with this show than you actually think, because you have the Wayans brothers, the Wayans sisters. They did tons of spin-offs, like Don't Be a Menace to East LA while drinking juice in the hood. You had the Scary Movies franchise. You had another scary paranoia movie spin-off type of deal. Then on top of that, you had White Chicks. So you had all these cultural TV shows, movies. Then you have Jim Carrey, Ace Ventura, The Mask, Bruce Almighty, The Cable Guy. Alrighty then. Like a glove. It's one of those TV shows that are just created huge people. And even with the actors, and let me tell you, some of the acting, some of the plots, some of the stories, absolutely brilliant. I would have rather watched that than Saturday Night Live if it wasn't for Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Adam Sandler, David Spade, etc., etc. But another person that came out of Living Color, which I think is nothing more than a C-list actress as well as singer, is Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez was one of the fly girls in Living Color. Now she's making millions. She's engaged to A-Rod, and I cannot stand her at all. God damn. 45 years old. Man, back in the day, a 45-year-old woman will not be prancing around in a G thing and shaking her booty. Back in the day when I was younger, they would be respectful. They would be watching TV shows with their kids and stuff like that. Now it's totally changed. Now they are sluts. I'm talking about the movie people, not the normal everyday people. Those are the people that you actually trust and you gain respect for, because they're the hardworking people. Anyway, so yeah, that's basically about it for my little bit of a look back in the 1990s. And let me tell you, the 1990s, there's not much more you can talk about without diving deep into the barrel of TV shows. Because one of the things about TV shows now is you have your cable, then you have your other ones. But when it comes to these particular shows, every single TV channel had their own hits. CBC, ABC, NBC, ABC, NBC, CBC, of course. That other one, Fox. Then as the decade started to grow, that's when things really started to tip top and just absolutely just like become awesome. Oh, interesting. So, yeah, I could dive into it even more. But, it would probably take at least 12 plus episodes just to have a half decent breakdown of the shows out there. Like, there was still, like, Frasier that I never mentioned, Alec McBeal that I never mentioned. What is it? The Real World. So many more TV shows that I have not mentioned that it's there. Let's just leave it at that, you guys. Next week, I'm not quite sure what I'll talk about next Friday, but it's going to be a 90s theme. I might stay away from film. I might go into something else, but who absolutely knows? Technology. Now that is something that could be interesting. Maybe we can get an hour show next week. But anywho, make sure you head over to the blitzmorning.com. Check out our new website. It's up, it's going, it's booming, and it is rocking. So don't stop a knocking. No. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at the Blitz Morning. As well as if you have an issue or if you have a TV show that you want me to mention next week, feel free to email us at theblitzmorningshow@gmail.com. If you want us to talk about a certain topic next week, tell us. We'll talk about it. But until then, my name's Toby Brendel, and you are listening to the Blitz Morning Show. I thank you, everybody, for staying with us till the very end, and I will catch you Monday with Question Call, brought to you by QC Indie.